From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as
Johnny Dollar?
The insurance investigator that's working on the Byron Hayes killing?
That's right. Who's this?
I got a few things to say about the shooting. I can't say them to the police, but if you level with me, maybe I can say them to you.
All right. But I've got to be sure of you, too. Who are you, and how'd you find out about me?
One of the papers mentioned that you'd come to New York. I guess you've read about me, too. I'm what they call the chief suspect, object of a widespread search.
Roy Corona?
That's right. Now, do you want to talk to me?
Sure, Roy. Anytime you say.
I thought so. I'm going to give the phone to a friend that's with me. He'll tell you where to go and what to do so he can pick you up.
Edmund O'Brien in another adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Corinthian All Risk Insurance Company. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Byron Hayes matter. Expense account item 1, $12, transportation from Hartford to New York. There wasn't much to be done that first day. The police had their theory on who had killed Hayes, and I hadn't had time to form mine. And then that evening, I received a phone call from a man who called himself Roy Corona, the basis of the police theory. 20 minutes later, according to instructions, I was standing on a 7th Avenue street corner holding a copy of Life magazine in front of my face so I'd be recognized.
Hey, you.
Yeah?
What's your name?
I'm your man, all right, Dollar.
Come on. How are you, Dollar?
All right.
You didn't do anything I told you not to on the phone, did you?
I told you I wouldn't do anything, didn't I?
A lot of people make a lot of promises they don't keep.
Maybe so.
Well, I guess all I can do is either trust you or drive fast enough and far enough to shake a tail if I don't trust you.
Or you can drop me if you don't want to go through with this. I didn't ask to come, you know.
That's right. And I don't think you should have been asked. But it's Roy's neck, not mine. I'll just pretend there's a tail on me so I won't get out of practice. Doorway next to the poultry store there.
Thanks for the ride.
It's on the ground floor, second door back. Tell Roy I'll sit out here for a minute and then park the car.
Sure.
Tell him I'll be in a little while.
Yeah. Roy?
Yeah. My
10 p.m. when I left her. And my first stop was a phone booth a half block away from her apartment building. I dialed her number and got what I'd expected, a busy signal. It was nothing definite, but I would have staked my expense account total on the hunch that she was warning somebody. To bear me out, the phone was ringing in my hotel room when I got there. Johnny Dollar.
This is Earl Fisher, Mr. Dollar.
Earl Fisher?
Yes. You mentioned my name to Rita Cobb a short time ago.
Yeah?
I had a feeling I should have talked to someone before this.
That's right, you should have.
I hope you can understand, however, my feelings. I naturally didn't want my name to enter this public.
Naturally.
I have a great deal to consider. A family, reputation.
Yes, I understand, Mr. Fisher.
But I feel that I have to talk to you.
Did you tell Rita Cobb that you were going to?
Hardly. Since she threatened me with dire consequences if I did.
All right, Mr. Fisher. Where can we get together?
I'd have to know that I could count on your confidence, at least temporarily.
I think you can count on that.
Could you meet me this evening?
Where?
Do you know Ricky's Club on Lexington near 80th?
I can find it.
Then shall I see you there in 30 minutes? The bartender will point me out to you.
I'll be there, Mr. Fisher. Thanks for calling. That was the first real result of the lead given to me by Roy Corona. The second was quick to follow. I would have made another bet that a warning by Rita Cobb had decided somebody else to correct the situation in another way. It happened when I left the lobby and called for a cab. Hey! The shots came from a car, double parked. First, I saw the pistol come out of the window. Then I dropped, and from a prone position, I heard the rest. And I remember lying there. I didn't wonder so much about who was shooting at me then. I wondered how many people in the city of Greater New York wanted to see me and my information out of the way.
We will return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. For another great crime-hunting drama, spend a half hour with CBS's Gangbusters every Saturday evening. On Gangbusters, sheriffs, police chiefs, and district attorneys from American cities and towns tell the story of their manhunts. Fine cast of top actors join them to reenact these real dramas of crime-busting in action. Gangbusters is heard every Saturday evening on most of these same CBS stations. Be listening this Saturday, won't you? And now, with our star, Ed O'Brien, we return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
I didn't want to talk to the police right then, but I didn't have a chance not to. A patrolman was on the scene almost before I could get up off the sidewalk. And 25 minutes later, I was in my room with the sergeant of detectives I'd met earlier in the case.
What's going on, Dollar? Who's out after you?
I think I was mistaken for somebody else.
Now, you know better than that. I've got witnesses that for 10 minutes a car was double parked in front of this hotel. And that time, 4 or 5 men came out of that lobby. But the minute you step out, they open fire. Now, that doesn't sound like a mistake, does it?
It still could be.
Are you holding out anything, Dollar?
I don't know who shot at me, if that's what you mean.
That's only part of what I mean. I don't want anybody killed working on one of my cases. Now, what have you dug up? If you don't give it to me, I'm going to put you under wraps for your own good.
Okay, Mayor.
Oh, then you do have something.
Well, I didn't think much of it at first. It was a lead on Rita Cobb.
What kind of a lead?
On what might really have gone on between her and Hayes.
Where'd it come from?
I took it to the widow first. She still denied knowing her husband was acquainted with the Cobb woman, but she may have realized that by admitting it, she'd be giving herself a motive.
That's not new.
No, but the possibility of blackmail is. And she could have known about that, too.
Blackmail? Where'd that come from?
I can't tell you, but I think it's worth something. I have a list of names. Men who might be on the same spot that Hayes was.
Got it written down?
Yeah, right here.
Where'd you get this, Dollar? Names, addresses, and occupation.
Sorry, I can't tell you that.
You're going to refuse to answer police questions?
Just that one. I'm not trying to hog your case, Sergeant Middleton. I'm trying to be hard to get along with. But you've got to understand. You must have given your word to an informer somewhere along the line.
All right, we'll let it pass for now.
Thanks. And I guess you understand, too, that you're probably holding the names of some potential suicides if you break this publicly right now.
And what about a potential killer? Do these men know you're onto them?
I'm not sure how many. I tossed a couple of names at Rita, generalized the rest. Then one of them phoned me. When I was leaving the hotel, I was on my way to meet him.
He probably baited you out onto the sidewalk.
It could be. I couldn't tell where he was phoning from. Maybe right downstairs.
Which one was he?
This one, Earl Fisher. Married, family. Fairly big gun on the stock exchange.
Motive enough to make a try on you?
No proof that he fired the shots, but I'd pick up Rita Cobb as a material witness or something. Somebody might think of putting her out of the way if they haven't already.
No, not if they know you have their names.
Well, I guess you're right.
But I'll pick her up anyway.
Let me get on the phone. Just try a check on Earl Fisher. I called the bar where Fisher said he'd meet me. The answer I got didn't do much to alibi him for the attempt on my life. The bartender told me that Fisher not only hadn't been there that night, but that he, the bartender, had never heard of him. While Sergeant Middleton went out to pick up Rita Cobb, I hopped a cab, went back to the Hayes address to try the widow again.
Is it absolutely necessary, Mr. Dollar? I'm so distraught.
I'm afraid it is necessary, Mrs. Hayes. A number of things have happened since I left you.
Very well. I hope you won't stay long.
I'll try not to.
Would you like to sit down?
Yes, I think we'd better.
All right. Come in here. I hope you'll forgive the appearance of the apartment. I haven't had the servant in.
Might have been better if you had, rather than staying here alone.
I couldn't face her. I don't know how I'll be able to face anybody ever. We've been not what you'd call prominent people, but certainly quite acceptable. And then to have Byron killed in that sordid place under these circumstances.
What circumstances, Mrs. Hayes?
That girl. No one will ever really believe that Byron didn't know her, no matter what the truth is.
I think you know what the truth is, but you've had reason to deny it. Now, what reason? What are you trying to save?
Save? What is there to save now?
I can't think of anything except what's left of your pride, Mrs. Hayes, if you'll excuse my saying so.
You're a cruel young man.
I don't like to be, but sometimes it's worse to be too kind. You've taken advantage of the police and me by holding back the truth for purely selfish reasons.
Mr. Dollar.
You're less interested in seeing a husband's death cleared up than you are in what your neighbors will think of you when the truth does come out. And it has come out.
Mr. Dollar.
And you're in danger of having to answer impeding the investigation of the death of your own husband. Now, what will your neighbors think of that?
Mr. Dollar, what are you saying? What do you mean?
Rita Cobb admitted to me that your husband was more than a casual friend.
She's lying.
Another acceptable husband admitted to me that she was blackmailing him. There are others. So it's only logical to assume that she was blackmailing your husband.
That's not true.
How do you know?
It can't be true.
The state will spend a year looking into Mr. Hayes' money transactions if they have to. And there's something else. I'm convinced that you knew about it. I was convinced by the way you reacted when I told you earlier tonight.
I'm so confused.
When I told the police how you acted, their first thought was that possibly you'd killed your husband.
Oh.
Your motive would be that
No.
you knew about Rita Cobb, so naturally you wouldn't want to admit it.
Oh, don't think that. They can't, my own husband, no matter what he did.
Police minds go that way when people don't cooperate with them.
I was wrong. I thought it didn't make any difference. I thought